Testing 1, 2, 3. Hopefully it works. We're gonna start this over again. Hold on. Take 2. What is up, you guys, and welcome back to Beyond the Game podcast. It is Yo Girl Camille. Welcome to the podcast where we kind of just navigate postseason together. We talk about experiences, we talk about how to navigate the grieving process, and just kind of get to have a little girl and boy talk. So grab your drink of choice. It could be coffee, wine, maybe a little high noon. It's not sponsored, but it should be. And let's get into this conversation. So today I am telling you full advance, it's gonna be a little bit heavy. Next week's episode, we are interviewing my best friend, and I'm so excited for that. So stay tuned for that. But today we're gonna kind of get into the whole reason as to why I even started this podcast last week. But you haven't listened to episode 1. I would say go listen to it, but at the same time, it's the intro video. So if you don't want to, I also don't blame you. But today we're going to talk about what it looks like to walk through the grieving process as an athlete, as an individual, an active individual, and just kind of what it means to identify it. I'm going to hopefully help you be able to identify it, hopefully, but also just so that if you are in your season at the moment and you don't plan on quitting for a while, you're eventually going to get there. As athletes, we're eventually going to get there. And I'm currently walking through that at the moment, and I'm realizing there's not a lot of resources around it. I didn't even know that I was kind of going through that, and that was what was causing all of my freakouts and just behavior changes, until my therapist was like, honey, you're going through the grieving process. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to kind of go into maybe some tools, some things that you can start doing to kind of start living a happy and healthy life again, or to make sure that you continue living a happy and healthy life. So let's get into it. I feel like I want to cuddle with these balls. Anyways, so if you didn't listen to last week's episode, a little bit about me is that I have been dancing professionally for about 4 years now. I was a collegiate cheerleader. I've been cheering all my life. And I have been dancing with an amazing NBA team for the last 2 seasons. And this year I decided that it was going to be my last year. I kind of knew it in the back of my head. I knew that it was coming, but I obviously fought it off. I think one thing that a lot of us have trouble in is nobody talks about that it's okay if you want to leave. Nobody talks about the fact that sometimes you just outgrow things. And that's really hard. I wish that more people would be like, hey, that's normal. Like, I also battle that fact. And I felt really lost this season because I felt my heart pulling in different directions, that I was not surrounded around people that also were being pulled in a different direction. With that being said, that does not mean that just because you're being pulled in a different direction than the people that you're around means that the people you're around are bad or toxic. Just because the environment that you were in is no longer serving you does not mean that that environment is toxic. Just because the people that you surround yourself with, that you love, that you have been around, that you guys have been thriving together, is no longer going in the same direction that you were going, does not mean that they are bad or that the environment is bad. It also doesn't mean that you're a bad person for not wanting to be in that environment anymore. Sometimes you just outgrow where you are. Sometimes it's no longer serving where you are. Sometimes you're no longer serving where you are. And that is okay. There's this stigma around saying goodbye unless something happens. It's like, I have been so brainwashed because of my experiences and because of the fact that nobody talks about it, that I thought the only reason why you could leave somebody and something is because something has to happen. They have to cheat on you. You have to do something wrong. You have to get fired. There has to be drama somewhere. Someone has to punch you. I don't know. I always thought, though, that something literally has to happen that is so toxic for you to be allowed to want to leave. And that is what I battled through this year of feeling just like my heart's not here. And having to admit that to myself, you know how hard that is? You know how hard it is to admit to yourself that you don't love the thing that you thought you were going to love forever? Like, no one talks about that much. I have been training for years. Ever since I'm a self-trained dancer. Nobody talks about that. And I wish that they would have talked about that more, because what I was walking through this year, I just felt so bad. I felt like I was such a bad person. I was being in an environment that I was looking at and no longer loving. I was looking at and not feeling valued anymore. I was looking at and feeling like I wasn't able to give value anymore. You know how hard that is? And I'm trying to find these reasons. Okay, well, is this person bad for me? Is the team bad for me? Is the work bad? What is bad? I can't find anything. So how am I allowed to leave? Because no one talks about that. No one talks about the fact that nothing has to happen for you to just make the decision to leave. And I think what's harder is I think we also put this pressure on ourselves that, okay, something has to happen, but also, what if they hate me? And I think also as friends, we need to start working on loving each other a little bit better. And as teammates, as coworkers, learning to love each other a little bit better, because just because someone's leaving doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Just because someone is leaving doesn't mean you need to cut them off. Just because someone is leaving doesn't mean that you're also a problem or there's anything wrong with you. There should be more love and support when that happens. And as athletes, I don't think that happens enough. And as athletes, I don't think it's talked about enough. There should not be a okayness around ending your sport, ending your game only because you're graduating or only because your contract is up. Well, what happens when that individual, you, your friend, your teammate, your athlete, whatever it is starting to go somewhere else? They want to do something else. They feel themselves going somewhere else. Why not love and support that person? And there needs to be more talk about that, for sure. But obviously I can't change things. Obviously you can't change things. But I'm here to tell you that it is okay. It is okay if you are wanting to step aside. If you're wanting to be the bigger person and be like, this is no longer serving me. I am no longer serving it. And just because I want to leave doesn't mean my life is over. You are so much more than the uniform that you wear. You are so much more capable than just representing the uniform that you wear. You have so many talents that you don't even know, because your uniform is masking your opportunity to find those talents. Because I think we as athletes, especially entertainment team, we use that uniform to be our identity. And I know I'm not the only one. We let that uniform be every single thing about us. Our personality, our achievements, our resume, what we can do, who we can be. You take that off and who are you? A lot of us don't want to figure that out. And sometimes we finally wait so long that God is like, you need to stop. I need you to take that uniform off, and I need you to put my body, my armor on you. Because I am your identity. I am actually your resume writer. And I'm also not only the resume writer, but the resume looker. And I know I probably said that wrong, but you guys know what I mean. He's the one looking over our resume. He's also the one approving if we get the job or not. And that can be meaning a lot of different things. But before I go on a tangent, it's okay. Okay. I would encourage you actually to figure out who you are. And sometimes that doesn't mean you need to leave the team. Sometimes that doesn't mean that you need to leave the sport. But I think there is a point in our life, and there will be a point in your life, when it's time to take the uniform off and figure out who you are without it on. What are you going to wear next? Who are you going to be next? What are you going to stand for next? Because we are so talented. We are capable of things. We have so many achievements, so many things that like are beyond whatever your sport is to represent us. And it's really exciting actually when you think about it, of getting to know someone else. Like think about that. We're going to talk about the grieving process, but I want to just encourage you for a second. Think about the fact that you get to fall in love with someone new. You get to know someone new. You get to learn about someone new, and it's yourself. Like we're constantly working through this journey of falling in love with ourselves and getting to know ourselves. But whenever you have your identity in something else, and I'm specifically talking sports because we go through different jobs. Like us, this group of us talking right here, I'm assuming we're most likely in our 20s. Maybe there's some teenagers on here, but our life had just begun. I'm 24. So someone said like on TikTok, it was like, if someone said when you're an adult, you like the age that you turn an adult, so 18, however old you are, that's actually how many like adult years you are. So I'm only like what, 6? So like give yourself grace because we're still learning about ourselves. But with that being said, this is about the age range. Like if you go collegiate and you go professional, now if you're a professional basketball, actually no, if you're professional anything, you most likely are going into like your 30s if you're lucky. But let's just talk like entertainment team. Let's talk like collegiate. Your career is going to end around 22. Now, my therapist and I love to talk about all these football players with these like little college COVID deals where they're like 27 freaking playing college ball. Like, get a job. You don't need to be doing this all your life, okay? Either go pro or go get a job. Anyways, so, but with that being said, like, we have known this is a relationship. Your sport is a relationship. And this is why we go through the grieving process whenever you are done with your sport, because we're going through a divorce. If you get hurt, you're going through a death. We're going through a divorce whenever we leave our sport, because we have been doing this since some of us could walk. Some of us maybe could run, I guess. We have been involved in athletics and your sport that you love ever since we were children. We don't know. I would love to encourage you to remember your life without your sport. Think about it. Or think about a sport. Maybe you like went from one sport to the other and then now that's what you're doing in college, whatever it is. You have been playing or doing since you can remember. Like before that you can remember. So we don't know life without this. Just like, say, a marriage, you get married, you're living life with this person. You kind of start having characteristics of this person. You guys make lifelong plans with this person. You sometimes have kids, whatever it is. And when you go through a divorce, you're literally having to figure out who the fuck you are without this person. You have things from this person, whether it's kids, whether it's materials, whatever it is. You have literal things from this person. Experiences, memories, all the above. Souvenirs. And then you also have all these dreams that you guys made. You have a house, you have whatever it is, you have things. And now you're having to figure out, how the fuck do I take the trash out? Like, I don't know. You're figuring out, well, what the fuck do I do? We were planning on a 5-year, like house plan building, and now I'm living in an apartment. You never know. Like, you're literally figuring out who you are without what you thought you were going to be living with your whole life. And obviously, we know as athletes, we're not going to be playing this game or playing the sport, whatever it is, for our whole life. But I think most of us can say that we also have never thought about it. When they ask us our 10-year plan, we're still young enough where we could be like, oh, I hope I'm still playing. I hope I'm still coaching. I hope I'm still involved. We haven't thought about that. And I haven't really thought about that until about a year or two ago. We are learning who the heck we are without this. And that's hard because our whole life revolved around it. Our friendships revolved around it. I don't know about you, but all of my relationships revolved around it, except for the man that I am with. God bless him. I love him so much. But like, yeah, He is the first man that I've ever met that didn't have to do with the sport. I always met around the sport, or I only was approached because of who I was in the uniform that I wore. Dating life. Then you have your schedule or your work. A lot of us make money now through our sport. And yes, we have other things, but like we never have to actually start a career because that's our career. Our schedule, our holidays, like literally everything changes when you leave. And you get to figure out who that is. As exciting as it is, it's also not easy. And it's not talked about enough. My therapist loves to applaud me that I am handling this really well. But I think that's only because I was foreshadowing the fact that I knew this was going to break me and I couldn't let it break me. So I knew probably mid-season, I need to do something else. I need to figure out who I am. I need to figure out there is more to me. And unfortunately, I can't explore all of that while being here in the sport, not just the organization, but like the sport of my sport. And I set myself up for success. Is it easy? No, but I did start thinking of other things. I kind of started my own business. I started doing other things to make sure that when the time came, then the season ended, I wasn't going to fall back, because we all know those relationships where we're like, yeah, this isn't for me anymore. I'm going to leave. But then the times get heavy, you get lonely, you have an event to go to, and you're like, are they still single? Hey, boo, like, wanna come over? You know? And the door only closes when you block them or when they get in a relationship. Sometimes that also doesn't close. But what I am saying is I needed to make sure that I set myself up for success so that I knew what I have postseason, I won't be able to continue growing if I go back. And thankfully I did that, but that's not easy. And that's why I want to talk about it. It's not easy walking away from something you love. It's not easy to walk away from someone you love. Let's talk about that for a second. It's not easy to walk away from someone you love. You know those relationships where it's the person is great, the person is so good. You love them, you want it to work. You might even think that you have a future with them. But you guys are not good for each other. It doesn't mean that the relationship is toxic. Just because a relationship, wait, let me reword that. It doesn't mean the person is toxic. Just because a relationship is toxic doesn't mean a person is toxic. And that's a really heavy word, but just because something isn't working out, your relationship isn't working out, doesn't mean there's something wrong with you, and it doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. But sometimes you just aren't good for each other. Sometimes you outgrow each other. Sometimes the things that they're putting in, you can't equal, or it's not good for you. And sometimes you have to walk away, and you know that that is hard. Those relationships that you have to walk away from, where you're like, there's nothing wrong, but we're just not good. You know how hard that is? I know you do. And it's the same thing with this. Sometimes in our athletic career, we have to make the decision to walk away, or we're forced to walk away. Maybe there's an injury, maybe you're graduating, maybe you just can't work anymore. That's hard. It is so much harder to walk away from something like that when things are good, people are good, than it is to have a really toxic environment, a toxic team, a toxic coach, whatever it is, toxic players. It's hard. That's easy to walk away because you can be like, hell no, that is not for me. But when it's good and you can't find anything bad about it, but you just know in your gut and deep down in the way that you were happy or not happy, it's no longer for you. That is so hard and no one talks about it. You know how hard it was? I didn't even tell anyone that I was leaving. Like, maybe 2 people, and it got to a point where I did want to talk about it. I actually wanted to talk about it because it was eating me alive. But I had no idea how to say anything because I couldn't give anyone a reason as to why. There was nothing wrong with what was going on. There was nothing wrong with the organization, nothing wrong with the team, nothing wrong with the people that I was around. Like, literally everything was so good. but I was not happy. I was no longer at peace. I no longer felt like that. Like I could feel it in my gut, and everything in my head was like, no, freaking fight for it. Like, I don't care what you have to do. You are not leaving, until I realized, let's stop fighting. Let's really look at what this could mean. And I realized I want to explore new things. I want to explore my talents. I think one of the things that made me so sad was I was really thriving in my career that I kind of started doing on a side job. And I was around 26 people that knew nothing about it. You know how hard that is? And that's nothing about them. That has nothing to do with them. But it's hard sometimes when you live your life with your team. And as athletes, we live our life with our team. That is our family. We are surrounded around our team because you practice with them day in, day out. You have games 3 times a week. You're traveling with them, like whatever it is, that's your family. And no one really talks about the fact of how hard it is to be around, say, 20, 30 people who know nothing about you. And I have learned that that can't be on them. That is not their fault. And for a while, I put that on myself of, oh, well, if talk more, do this. But sometimes it just doesn't feel right. And that is kind of what it came to. I felt like I was Hannah Montana. I felt like I was living a double life because the life that I was living at home, no one knew about. And I would, go to practice. I would go to games when I was literally, the amount of times that I cried on the way to a game and stood outside of the arena bawling my eyes out because there was things going on in my family that I felt like I had no one to talk to about it, because what are you supposed to do? Just be like, hey guys, this is happening and I don't know if I'm going to see them again. How do you just randomly talk about that? And I'm the kind of person that I'm like, unless you ask me how I'm doing, I am not going to just say that. So I'm like, that became really hard, living a life where I just was like, I'm outside in my car bawling my eyes out, and then I'm expected to be on. And I loved it. It was good. It was a good distraction. But it got to the point where I was needing someone so bad that it got really hard being around 26 people and not having anyone that I could talk to about it. And it got to a point where I had to just stop beating myself up about it, because I was like, it's not their fault that they don't know. But at the same time, not everyone needs to know your business. And I think one of the good protections that we have is like, if it's right, then the conversation will happen. And sometimes the conversation doesn't need to happen. But I think what was happening was God was like, this isn't where I need you to be right now. Because you're right, you do need people. And you're right, you are doing this alone, and you don't need to be doing this alone. With that being said, God was made me not alone, but like, sometimes you're gonna make decisions that you just have to wait and see. You're not gonna understand, but you need to do it. And sometimes it's better to actually be alone than it is to be lonely in a crowded room. It's sometimes we get in this isolated moment of our lives where we need that, because diamond under pressure, sometimes we need that moment to find out who we are, to be able to quiet out all the noise and figure out what the heck is going on. And when you get in a room of people that, in other words, could not care less of what you're going through, that is loud. A lot of times we think that people's opinions are loud, but there's also another form of that, of being around people that just you're not supposed to be around right now. And makes it really hard to say because, again, there's this like people pleasing mind part of me, but I've been learning through this like isolating time that I don't need to please the world. And I also don't need to be lying to people's faces by just boosting them up by telling them what they want to hear. And I think sometimes people could be also held accountable that maybe people need you. Maybe there is someone in your life, maybe there's a teammate, maybe there's a friend that is going through the unimaginable, and all they need you to ask is, hey, how are you doing? Hey, can I do anything for you today? Hey, how can I pray for you today? Because that could go a really long way. And anyways, back to I'm sorry, I went on a tangent. But again, I'm learning all these things as I'm going through this process. And it's the truth. We struggle with that sometimes. Like we struggle with the fact that sometimes we feel like we need to stay because it's a sport or because it's a team, that we need to stay in an environment because you know what you hear. Let me put it this way. I told myself, no, I need to stay because they're like being around a team is what gets me out there. So I need to do that. It's the only way that I can be around people. Having this job literally puts me out in front of people. It gives me connection. It helps me like meet people, interact with people, whatever it is. I gave myself every reason as to why I needed to stay, but sometimes those exact reasons are why you need to leave. Because let me tell you this, after doing that, I have so much peace and joy. Isn't that crazy? My circle is so small. When you think about it, I have the people that actually like wanted to know how my life was going, that were actually there for me as I'm crying on the floor constantly, that were actually on the phone with me game days as I'm bawling my eyes out because I'm trying to hold it in, and what am I supposed to do? Just start crying when no one knows what's going on? I have so much joy, like so much peace, but also I realize I'm actually so much more capable. Not having that excuse makes me go out and connect with people, makes me go hang out with people and friends, and actually I go make those connections myself. They don't have to hold the key to your success. My boyfriend told me this constantly this season, babe, you're giving other people too much responsibility for your success. You're putting your career in the hands of people that are not going to help you get there, that where you want to go. You know why? Because you can go higher than that and they don't want to see you succeed. You need to start taking what you know, getting out there and making it happen for yourself. The amount of executive people that I have talked to postseason, now that I'm not an affiliate, is actually crazy. And you know how I got those meetings? Because I went and called them. I went and emailed them. I said, hey, I really want to do this as a job. Can I please have a meeting with you? I would love to talk. The amount of opportunities that have come up from there in the last 2 months postseason than of the last 2 seasons where I was constantly asking, hey, I want to do this. Can you get me connected with those people? Or hey, like, who do I talk to? You have the world in your hands. You have all the capability that you need to succeed. Stop using the uniform that you were wearing to be the reason. Because actually, fun fact, do you think that most of your success is all from this name? I bet you could be even more successful if you just took the name away. That's always going to be there. It is always going to be a part of your resume. It's always going to be a part of who you are. You're always going to have those memories. It does not matter what happens from today forward. You will always have that. They can't take that from you. No one can take that from you. No one can take away the success that you had within those teams, the sports. What you have, you have that. You have those full credentials. It's in your resume. You have the experiences, you have the people, you have the connections. Now take that and run with it, and I guarantee you're going to be more successful than you thought you would have been if you would have stayed. And if you are still in your sport and you're planning on staying, that does not mean that you're not going to be successful. I'm just saying that when that time comes, don't let it stop you. Don't let yourself think that your world is over, because you're going to find that it's actually just beginning. And if you're contemplating, you're telling yourself, well, what if this, what if that? Like, no. That's the same type of thought process that we have when we don't want to leave a toxic person. That same process of that gut of like knowing, I know this is not for me anymore and I know I need to go somewhere else. Or say a job, like I know this is not for me and I need to go somewhere else. I need to go somewhere where I'm more appreciative, higher pay, doing what I actually love. But you're saying, no. Don't manipulate yourself into stopping your success, stopping your potential. I went on a complete tangent. I realized that I don't even know what I talked about. I just blacked out, honestly. So I guess we're going to make this a 2-part series. I was supposed to talk about some tools that you could have that are going to help you postseason. Let me see how much time this episode is real quick. Okay, so we have 15 minutes before I have to get out of the studio, and I think we're running on like 33 minutes already of this episode. I hope that I added some type of value or some type of encouragement. I was really rough, and I apologize for that. Obviously, I'm really passionate about all this, and if I'm being honest, so the setup that I have right now is literally just my phone, me, and I have a mic tied to me. So it's not the like podcast setup, and I felt like I was just talking to myself. Like talking to myself and what I wish I would have heard a couple months ago, what I wish I would have heard 3 years ago. Yeah. So if it's a little aggressive, I'm sorry, but hopefully there's something out of there. Hopefully. If not, maybe it's just relatable, or maybe it's just, oh my gosh, this girl is crazy, but hey, at least views. Anyways, I think what I'm going to do is a little like short series podcast episode where maybe we'll have like a little get ready type style or whatever, and I'm going to go through some just quick tips and like itineraries of what you can do to start incorporating things into your day if you're postseason, whether it's just off season, whether you just graduated, you are actually postseason and you're done with your career, to just kind of stay happy and healthy, because there is a lot of importance to that, because whenever we just stop, our body goes into shock, because we're used to working out 3 to 10 hours a day, like doing sports every single day, which means, our schedule was synced up to that, our athletic, like all the calories that we were burning synced up to that, us choosing what workout synced up to that, what we were eating, when we were eating, all the above. So that all goes out of whack. And like our personal life all goes out of whack when that just stops, because we're like, well, what do we do now? So I'm going to go through just like a little bit of tips. We'll do a get ready with me style, so that way I actually have a full on time limit. And then, yeah, so we'll see that. If you guys are learning anything valuable from this, if you resonate anything with this, if I am actually getting my point across in any of this, please let me know in my DM. I would love to support you guys. Again, this is all new for me. I have been waiting for this. God has been talking to me about this since 2020, and I have a little bit of imposter syndrome. I have to tell myself, no, I have the experience. No, this is needed. I know I've gotten feedback before when I've talked about it, and I just really hope that this is going to do something. I promise you, as the podcast goes on, I'm going to be able to get my shit together. I filmed these two in the same day, the first episode and this episode, and I had a lot of technical difficulties, and then obviously I'm on a time crunch, so I just a little all over the place, and I apologize. But let me know if there's a specific topic that you want to talk about. As the podcast kind of grows, I will start adding like little like comments and questions before I go on the podcast, and I'll start answering those. Or even if you have like experiences that you want to talk about, I'll do that. Again, if you have anyone that you know that would be great to interview, or their story would be great, they have really good, thoughts, whatever it is, please DM me or email me. My Instagram is Yo Girl Camille. YoGurlCamille, Yo Girl Camille. Make sure to follow me. Please let me know what you thought about this podcast and the episode, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.